When people say, yeah, the healthcare system is not built for women, they actually mean it, because this doctor with a straight face dismissed me so easily. And it had me reflecting. I was like, how can you spend 12 years of school and just so easily dismiss a female's health concern? And that brought me into kind of better focusing my lens upon women's health. And you start to see and read studies, read articles, and you become appalled to realize, oh, for so many years, a lot of the studies and research regarding strokes and heart diseases were not even tested for women. The symptoms that were told were symptoms based on men. And the healthcare research was, oh, wait, no, women have a completely different experience. And that neglect, that assumption of if men experience it, then women experience the same thing, right? Now you have this dismissal, doctors easily dismissing the concerns of women. And you start to realize that the gap goes from being somewhat of a creek to an ocean. This is not acceptable. What do you do? Aside from just creating a product, I think that it draws a bigger story into the actual healthcare system itself.
What excites me most about this next guest I'm going to introduce to you is the fact that she reminds me so much of the entrepreneurial spirit. Many of my guests, almost all my guests, demonstrated on my very first podcast. It was called Unfacts. It was unfrequently asked questions related to COVID, because there never had been a time before in our history where we were talking about entrepreneurship in the world pandemic and how it was disrupting people's careers, their livelihoods, their dreams, their ambition. But these entrepreneurs found a way to shift and pivot and be the change they wanted to see in the world. Chelsea Jambo emanates all those qualities. She is the change that she wants to see in the world. Change for women's health. Change the narrative of how women are treated in the healthcare system. Change how doctors show up and make judgment calls without looking at the true backstory of a woman's requirements, a woman's desires to pursue certain avenues in her health journey. It's not a negotiating process like in a courtroom where you're trying to plead with the judge. This is not negotiating at a business table or compromising. This is a woman's right. And the medical system should be there in a shared decision-making model. Chelsea's business model was born from her backstory. Her business is on a mission to change how women feel about themselves, to manage their symptoms during all the phases of the hormonal shifts that a woman will experience, from puberty, pre-perimenopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, even the hormonal shifts experienced in a woman's life story, more so, is that hormonal journey. And it should be met with compassion, empathy, understanding. And this is why Chelsea created her business, OURBody, a selection of teas to support women in their hormonal journey. Her business model has grown from just product to education. She'll explain all of that to us. A true value-based entrepreneur who values quality over quantity, sustainability. And not only is it important for her to have relationships with her suppliers, which are locally sourced, she has built a business that's based on relationships with her distributors, broadening her tea from where they're produced in Ottawa to greater markets in Toronto, to the West Coast, Vancouver and beyond, and throughout the United Kingdom. This isn't a podcast about a brand product to support menopause. This is a podcast episode about the story behind community. When women gather and share their wisdom, change happens. The need for change is, in fact, the motivation to do something. And in Chelsea's case, she got creative. I can't wait to share her story. But before we begin, here's something you need to know about Chelsea Jambo. Chelsea Jambo is the story, the brains, and the founder behind OURBody Tea. What started as a quiet personal project born out of years of pushing through debilitating period pain and being dismissed by the healthcare system, at the young age of 24, she turned it around. Well, in fact, the turning point came when she was refused for a basic breast exam, despite the fact that her family has cancer history. She walked out of that appointment vowing never again. for someone else to decide what was her worth and what was worth worrying about in her body. At that moment, our body became more than tea. It became a movement, a promise to create solutions for women by women, rooted in transparency, community, and a radical self-kindness. Chelsea and her company are based in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, my hometown. Not only is she a female entrepreneur, she's a Canadian entrepreneur and an Ottawa-based entrepreneur, sourcing her ingredients from a supplier based in Ontario. Make no mistake, this entrepreneur is going places. Putting on my PR hat for more than 24 years, I can attest to the fact that when you find an entrepreneur with that fire horse spirit, this is 2026 after all, you want to put them out on center stage. So keep an eye out for OURBody tea to be a mover and shaker in the next few years to come. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Chelsea Jambo to the Menopause Disruptor podcast. Chelsea, welcome. Very pleased to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's get right into your backstory. Quite an interesting one. So your brand started not from a business plan, but from your lived experience. So can you please share with the audience the moment when your personal frustration with hormonal health sparked the idea for your company, OURBody?
Yeah. So I have a family history of breast cancer. And my grandma had been fighting it for years. And we essentially got the news that she wasn't going to make it. And around the time of getting that news, my mom also found out that she had a lump in her breast. So being the very self-aware person that I am and more health conscious, I was like, okay, this is leaning towards the trajectory of it being genetic. And there might be a somewhat realistic reality of me having breast cancer down the line. So I went to the doctors, explained my entire family history, and asked for preventative health care. And this conversation with the doctor became one where it was just like, no, he was so fixated on my age. He's like, you're 24. You don't have cancer. And I'm like, I know I'm 24. I don't think I have cancer, knock on wood. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to see my risk with cancer down the line with two women close to my family dealing with their issues. I want to see my risks. And this whole doctor's appointment was negotiation, fighting back and forth, me begging and pleading, just anything. And he essentially ended the appointment literally saying to my face, you're 24, you don't have cancer, I'm not putting my name on it. And it was that last statement, I'm not putting my name on it, that infuriated me. It just infuriated me so much that a male doctor, he's not going to have to go with the consequences of him saying no. He's not going to live with that consequences. I'm the one, God forbid, I have cancer down the line. I'm going to face those consequences. It's my body and I'm the one going to deal with them. So for him to use the justification that he doesn't want to put his name on it as an excuse for him to not sign off on me getting any form of preventative health care was just infuriating to me. So I began my journey to find a new doctor because that was unacceptable for me, to kind of help me with that. But also at the same time, I started doing this whole assessment and looking at my life and saying, okay, if I do have cancer down the line, I need to be able to prepare my body, have a good foundation, mentally and physically do well. Begin the journey of, okay, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to work out more. I'm going to build up my body so that it has a good foundation in the event that happens down the line. And in this assessment, I was looking at cutting things out of my life that may, with us being women, there's so many things that could have effects down the line. So I was like cutting things out of my life, and I was looking at came upon my period, and I have debilitating period pain. I'm throwing up. I'm curled up in a ball. I am out, and the only thing I technically had at the time was Tylenol and a heat pad and sometimes tea. And the amount of Tylenol that I consume, one is, I know it's not good for my body. I'm consuming the like required amount every 4 hours. That's not good for once a month. I don't think it's gonna be good. So I said, okay, if I'm gonna remove the amount of Tylenol that I use and how much I use it, I need something to deal with the pain because it's the symptoms. The symptoms are the problem. And I need something to deal with the symptoms. And that's essentially kind of where OURBody started and spin off into something. I started researching teas because I use chamomile, and chamomile sometimes or sometimes doesn't, depending on my period, depending on the month. And people often say raspberry leaf tea, so I had a slight moment of why don't we have a quote unquote superfood tea, something that looks at the symptoms, because that's what many women like suffer with. It's the symptoms. So something that looks at the symptoms of my menstrual phase, my period, using teas that don't really have a negative effect down the line, and you can don't do any like don't have as harmful of a reaction to your body. I started working with a specialist team and we started formulating these teas and really primarily focusing on the symptoms, combining creating a superfood tea, looking at the symptoms, and then once we kind of created the first tea, Celeste, which is for the menstrual cycle, we started looking at, perimenopause and then menopause, because I got the advice from an advisor of mine. She's like older and she's like, Chelsea, think beyond just the menstrual phase. She's like, the hormone journey is long. And, that being someone in my mid 20s, I'm like, yeah. I was like, of course, when I leave my menstrual phase, I hit the time people say like menopause. But I'm like, no, there's perimenopause, and then there's menopause, and that's postmenopause, and then and beyond. The hormonal journey is so much more than just the menstrual cycle. And that advice of hers really got me really thinking about the next phases. I mean, like, even though I'm not there yet, but like the phases down, the phases after the menstrual cycle. And I fortunately enough, had women in my life who were older than me and who felt comfortable sharing about their experiences through perimenopause and menopause. And those women were really the foundation of making these teas, through their advice and through their experience and through their stories and what it's like. They're the ones who I essentially tailor these teas for. And essentially kind of understanding the symptoms, understanding what these hormonal phases do to your body, and saying, okay, I'm not in it, but I have women close enough with me who are in it and who are telling me about their difficulties and telling me about their struggles. I'm like, okay, I want to make something so that their lives are a little bit better and that they also are finding support, because it's its own separate beast, it is its own separate journey, its own separate challenges entering these cycles. And then, yeah, so that's essentially my long story on what got me here.
I would say this is a perfect time to break for a word from our sponsors. Guess what? You, my listeners, are my sponsors. That's right. I would love it if you could support the show. Helping me will help bring these amazing episodes to you each and every week, just packed full of information to help you on your menopause journey. And to support the show, all you have to do is go into the show notes and click just above where you read Meet Your Host. In green is Support the Show. You click on the button and it'll bring you to a page where you have the option to donate monthly, 3, 5, 8, 10. You can be a loyal supporter for as long as you want, with recurring fee as little as $3 a month, and opt out at any time. Each investment goes directly back into producing episodes with even better content, improved audio quality, and will go a long way in bringing great guests onto the show.
We'll break it down a little bit at a time then. Before we get into this, what's in the tea and the whole experience of manufacturing the teas and sourcing the ingredients, I want to talk about your powerful backstory and how you handled the healthcare setting early in your journey, early in age, early in your entrepreneurship. What did that dismissal from the doctor teach you about the gaps in women's healthcare and how you've already explained how it shaped how you designed your products, but what the bigger picture, and you talked about the story. Let's talk about what that taught you specifically in women's health.
Yeah, I think we've all essentially heard the story that like the healthcare system is not built for women. It's not built for women of color, and it's just a struggle. And that's something that I hadn't really experienced up until that point. Having a family doctor and kind of just like nothing really serious up until that point, that when I experienced that, I quite frankly was beyond shocked. I was like, oh, when people say, yeah, the healthcare system is not built for women, they actually mean it, because this doctor with a straight face dismissed me so easily. And It had me reflecting. How can you spend 12 years of school and just so easily dismiss a female's health concern? And that brought me into kind of better focusing my lens upon women's health. And you start to see and read studies and read articles and all these things, and you become appalled to realize for so many years, a lot of the studies and research regarding strokes and heart diseases were not even tested for women. The symptoms that were told were symptoms based on men. And the healthcare research was, oh, wait, no, women have a completely different experience. And that neglect, that assumption of, oh, well, if men experience it, then women experience the same thing, right? And then now looking at the health system, it's like, okay, that struggle. Now you have this dismissal, doctors easily dismissing the concerns of women. And you start to realize that the gap goes from being somewhat of a creek to an ocean. How many things in the healthcare system are so against women? Where do you even begin? I think a lot of us women were, at least in my sense, I don't have a medical degree. I didn't spend 12 years in school. So how can I even approach this? And starting to have this conversation of, okay, this is not acceptable. This is like, what do you do? Aside from just creating a product, I think that it draws a bigger story into the actual healthcare system itself, because I, of course, can create a product and create a business that supports women and give that support. But I feel like if the core cause of the problem, the healthcare system, is not addressed, women are going to continue to experience these things. And it's just one of those things that makes you realize, okay, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's no clear path on how to address the actual problem. How do you fix something within the healthcare system? How do you get doctors to pay attention to women? How do you convince male doctors to take 5 seconds to actually understand the female body? How do you take doctors to not slap the label of, it's just your hormones onto everything?
Get a
And
good night's sleep, honey. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it starts snowballing. And I've been realizing that to actually make change, it really comes from being on the outside, I think. And I've been loving that a lot of more women feel comfortable talking about their experiences despite how we're treated within the healthcare system. We're talking about these conversations. We're doing something outside of it. We're gathering. I think that's where you start seeing that change, where even if, quote unquote, the healthcare system fails us, women will support us, right? This community of women who understand and experience what you go through is there to lean on. And this gap is, I honestly have no idea if it ever be fixed or ever close to going from an ocean to maybe a lake, to maybe like a pond. I don't know if that's something that within our lifetime is something that can be done, hopefully, because I've heard stories and the stories are just beyond insane. I think my story's bad, and then I hear misdiagnosis stories and just see years of just suffering, and I'm like, just there's no words. This experience really opened my eyes to how bad the situation for women is, and but at the same time, is the motivation to keep doing something, because it can be bad, but it does not have to stay bad. And there's something that can be done. We can figure out something to support women, because I'll be I hate to leave it at the fact that, oh, if the system's broken, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm like, it's not the end of the story. It just means we have to get creative in our support and
Yes.
in what we do. But yeah,
That is beautiful. Chelsea, how old are you, may I ask?
I am 25, turning
So,
26 in a week.
oh, happy
Yeah.
early birthday. So that puts you not a Capricorn, that makes you Aquarius.
Yeah.
Something to
Yeah.
say about that. But you said so many impactful things. And before we get into the tea, and we'll leave them wait, the listeners are waiting. But here you are. This incident happened to you about just over a year, almost a couple of years ago. You already recognized at your young age. I mean, you're just a few years, a little bit older than my youngest daughter, a little bit younger than my oldest. And you have already recognized the real health disparity and are taking up arms and almost becoming championing the cause for many women you probably don't even know yet. Women at like you said, all the spectrum of the hormonal journey. And let's face it, our lives are marked by hormonal shifts from hitting puberty to our first pregnancy, all through the reproductive years into perimenopause, postmenopause. So it's really a hormone journey for the rest of our lives. And here you are at your young age as an entrepreneur, recognizing that, I like how you did it, there's something beyond. This is beyond unacceptable. And so we are gathering, and that was your motivator, gathering by a momentum of the story, not just your story, the stories of other women in different age brackets that are saying, think beyond. As we used to say in public affairs, think outside the box, think beyond. So it's not just what you're experiencing, it's what everyone will experience. Kudos to you for doing that.
Thank you.
I love women entrepreneurs, but when they're young and Canadian, Ottawa based, that makes me even more excited. So you had been given this advice, probably unsolicited advice. I imagine that some of these women just came to you with these stories. What was that light bulb moment? What finally went click in your head and went, I have a solution. It's not going to change the health disparity. It might not educate our doctors. There's other people that will do that work and move the yardstick. But what was that light bulb moment that you recognized that I can do something?
Before we dive back into today's episode, I want to share something really special with you. An ongoing sponsor is Hen's Den Yoga, a beautiful home studio located in the Comox Valley, owned and operated by Sarah Ham, who you may have heard on a recent podcast, educating us about the importance of mammograms and breast health. Sarah has created a welcoming, supportive space for all students to reconnect with their bodies, calm their nervous system, and build strength from the inside out through intelligent, thoughtful yoga, Pilates, bar, and HIIT classes. Book a class at hensdenyoga.ca. And if you're a values-aligned business and want your work shared with this community, you too can become a sponsor. Check out Sponsor the Show in the show notes below.
Yeah, I think this light bulb moment came, I would say like the true motivator was like the true, I can actually do something. There's actually something to be done came after creating the brand, after launching. And it was, I had this conversation with this one woman, and so she's in the US and she's telling me a story because she had endometriosis. And she's, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get her age wrong, but she's like late 30s. And she was telling me her story. And in that moment, and we're just having a casual conversation, but her story and the conversation we had was just beyond empowering. But essentially, her story in a nutshell was she suffered years, her entire through puberty, from the moment she got her first period all up until her like 20s, until she started transitioning into perimenopause. She had insane period pain, like beyond, like worse than mine, heavy bleeding. She's like, saw dozens of doctors throughout her years. You know, her teens, her 20s, she saw dozens of doctors, couldn't get answers, was misdiagnosed, was put on birth control because apparently all doctors think birth control can fix everything within a woman's body. Put on birth control, still experienced some pain. And then when she was like in her mid 30s, she saw a doctor that she saw when she was a kid, but it was a female doctor. And mind you, she had every scan, all the scans and tests done. All of the doctors missed it. And it was this one doctor when she was in her mid 30s who, I kid you not, more than 5 minutes after looking after the scans, she was like, you have endometriosis and you're at stage 4. Like you're
Oh, goodness.
like you're already like in a severe state. And the doctor was like, I don't even know how all of these doctors missed it, because she caught it within 5 minutes of looking at all of her scans together. And she was telling a story of how not only did she fight that journey to even get the answer, and that took years for her to get the answer, and also what being misdiagnosed within those years, that when she got that news, essentially the doctor was like, okay, if you want to have kids, you need to try now. Like, try everything right now. So they tried, her and her partner tried. It wasn't working. They did around, I think, 4 or 5 rounds of IVF. she couldn't get pregnant. And then she had surgery to kind of remove it, tried to get IVF again, and then it wasn't working. And her and her partner split up because of that. But then after that round of IVF, last round of IVF, she went back to the doctors, and doctors were like, we've removed everything. So she had a full hysterectomy. Everything was gone. Just to find out that she also had endometriosis in her bladder. So she still was experiencing the effects, and she was telling me the story. And mind you, she wasn't like crying, she wasn't like sad. Like she, I think, had been fighting this battle for so long that she was so defeated that she just did it. She was like, I've cried about it enough. It's built her into like she was very strong about it. And she was ready to share her message and share her journey and champion exposure awareness around endometriosis. And we're talking about this conversation around women's health and discussions and conversation about how important it is to one, like, catch things early on and kind of do what you can earlier on. And we're talking about this and kind of just sharing our stories back and forth. And in that moment, I think she said something to me where she's like, "You're really making a difference." And I was like, "But am I really though?" I feel like it's one of those things where like you're supporting women throughout just their symptoms, but it's like, but there has to be more, right? And I think in that moment, I think the brand went from just being about the product. And in that moment, it was like, okay, like there has to be an element of education. There has to be an element of, we need to talk about this because that conversation blew my mind away because of her treatment alone. The fact that we were laughing within the conversation, we were like sharing our struggles. We were both on the same page about like the difficulties, Canadian and American, about like, despite, regardless, regardless of the border, like the healthcare system still fails women, and it's just insane. And in that moment, we're both like, okay, there's still work to be done. And I took away from that conversation, like, wow, like that alone was just a powering story, but also like, how can we do more? How can I do more? What can I do? Like, just meeting with women and kind of having more conversations and normalizing the experiences of women, I think became a whole thing of mine. It was like, okay, like, let me start normalizing what women go through. When you start normalizing all, like, every phase, because I think society has been great at tabooifying the female experience and saying they can't talk about that because it's such a taboo. And I'm like, let's be honest, it's not a taboo. It just makes men uncomfortable. So we categorize it as taboo because, us women, we know how to talk about this in public. We can have mature adult conversations about this in public. Not about anything that's like, oh no, it's too scripted to be talking about in public. No, you can have a mature conversation about this in public or in a closed room or whatever. This notion of it's so taboo, I think, does so much harm to women's health and kind of just having these conversations more freely. And that's become a whole new thing for me. I'm like, okay, if I truly want to make change and I truly want to be able to support women, it has to be beyond the product. We need to start changing the conversation, start denormalizing this idea that it's okay to suffer as a woman. It's okay to be dismissed by the healthcare system. It's okay to struggle and go years being misdiagnosed just to have a doctor when it's too late catch it. Like, it's not okay. And we need to start denormalizing these experiences and then building up a new standard of care because the current standard of care is just not cutting it. But I think that can only be done when us women think beyond just, I wouldn't say ourselves. Like the notion really is like it takes a village. I think this is gonna take a village. This has to take a village to actually make that change and make that shift. And it's one villager at a time. We're all slowly joining in with all of our stories, with all of our backgrounds, and bringing in this new, hopefully, new era of change when it comes to women's health. And hopefully it sticks because I think more and more women need to hear, unfortunately, the bad stories because just to get infuriated, just to get that match underneath you because you're like, what do you mean? Like this thing that it belongs in a TV show. Like this is like actually happening in reality. This is like insane that like so many women are experiencing like similar situations like this, but their own different ways with regarding their own different symptoms and back and health concerns. But it's absolutely insane. But yeah.
Wow. Chelsea, I could sit here and listen to you forever. And I'm just going to interject, listeners out there, share this episode with your daughters, your nieces, your cousins, your next door neighbors, daughters. I mean, we're on the precipice of change, whereby a lot of the Gen X women are trailblazing through this massive change. And now we're seeing lots of information hit the ether on menopause, and rightly we're demanding change. And it's as though these wise women, these women who've reached this level of wisdom from the lived experience and are gathering around and sharing their tinctures, their ingredients, their stories, their energy to usher in change. And the next generation are sitting around observing all those stories and all that wisdom and saying, I know exactly what to do. And then going forth and conquering in their own areas of expertise. Words. And ushering in that change that we're demanding. And you're doing it not just through a product. I love what you said. Your brand shifted. OURBody, the brand shifted from just the product to education.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much more about that, which I really want to get into, because your determination, your tenacity to usher in this change and be that change in whatever shape and form you can through your product and through the education also transcends out to your commitment to locally sourced and natural.
Mm-hmm.
So let's shift the conversation now to talk about, first of all, the namesake of your brand, OURBody, and what exactly the teas are all about. The ingredients, that each of the namesake behind the different selection of teas. I love to hear all about that.
Yeah, I'm a very creative person, so I think this is like the fun part of the business. I think being able to tell a story or share a message through packaging, through design. But I will say it did take me a long time, a very long time to think of the name. I was for a while stuck on Our, and it evolved to OURBody because, and spoiler alert, I think it's like the current media coverage and conversations happening on the internet regarding people's viewpoints on the female body.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of just really sparked a kind of sparked something within me. OURBody really just the message behind it is we're unfortunately in a society right now where there are so many people who justly and unjustly have opinions about the female body. And I would say unjustly in the sense that the conversations being had about the female body are one that completely ignores and diminishes the experience of the female body. Because it's one thing to say, like, to categorize the female body as one thing, but like our bodies are so complex. Like, you can't single-handedly put in a category. It's too complex to put in a box. And so for me, when I was thinking about OURBody and talking about supporting women through the hormonal journey, but beyond just the hormonal journey, just supporting women's bodies, right? Like supporting the female body. It really came from the idea of, okay, regardless of what people are saying about the female body, these are our bodies. We're the ones experiencing the ups and downs, the symptoms, the miracles of labor, the end of our hormonal journey post post menopause, and everything in between. We're the ones who go day to day in the shoes of a woman's body. And I think the name itself just honestly pays tribute to the notion that these are our bodies. And regardless of what is being said about our bodies, how they should function, what they should be used for. These are our bodies. And it's shown right now in a society where it's made itself very clear that nobody is going to support the female body like a woman. Nobody's going to support our bodies like we are. So it's our bodies and it's our responsibilities to take care of our bodies, to champion for our bodies, to speak up for our bodies, because unless you've been in the shoes of a woman, you have no idea what it's like. Even as women, like me and you have gone through completely two different experiences as women, right? It's so complex that you can't even like categorize it as just one type thing and just overgeneralize the female body. And it's just too complex. So that's where our body comes in, and that's the namesake and the meaning behind the word. And then looking at the names of the teas, this is one that I love playing on because in my mind, I was looking at all all of the different phases as people, as women, looking at balance. So balance is our menopause one. And I was looking at, okay, when you're in your menopause, I think it's, well, society, quote unquote, ends at the end of your hormonal journey. It's not, but it's kind of that end where you're essentially rebalancing yourself from having a menstrual cycle to the chaos of the perimenopause cycle to the the menopause cycle, right? So I think in my mind I was like, okay, if the menopause cycle is the end or close to the end, then I want women to feel balanced. That's like to feel grounded and to feel like they've gone through this entire hormonal shift and they're at the end. So at the end, you're getting balanced, you're getting more grounded, getting more comfortable within your body. So that's where the name comes from. And then Harmony is for the perimenopause one. And I called her Harmony, her, they're all hers. I called her, yeah, Harmony because I feel like the perimenopausal phase is chaotic, is unknown, is all over the place. And what women want in that phase is harmony. They want harmony within their body. They want to not feel lost and confused, or they want to feel like they just want harmony. With the tea, I was like, this just suits what women want and what I want women to feel when they take the tea and the symptoms are kind of going down. And what I believe that with the conversation I've had with the one, that this is what women want. They want harmony when it comes to everything chaotic hormonally within their bodies. Of course, the ups and downs, but they want harmony. So that was like the reason why Harmony got her name. And then Shift is another menstrual one, but this one is one that I don't talk about a lot because I feel like a lot of people like don't understand this tea blend. But this tea blend, I created it for all the girls and all the women who have irregular periods, who are coming off birth control and are just refinding themselves, are shifting from one thing into another. If they're coming off the birth control pill or just in a shift, a continuous shift within their bodies. Yes, they're in their menstrual cycle, but they're not regular. They're currently, they have their own challenge. And I often feel like, these women who, whether they're coming off the birth control or they have irregular periods, they are kind of ignored. I find these women to be within the menstrual cycle, they're like the perimenopause version, like younger version, where not a lot of people talk about their experiences, like shoot away, overshadowed by the menstrual cycle, the same as for the longest time, perimenopausal was not really talked about, going to shoot away, overshadowed by menopause. I kind of create a shift to just support those women who are like, I don't have a regular period. And I'm like, it's okay. You don't have, for whatever reason, it's okay. But like, you can also find support. You can also find that regardless of the fact that your body's constantly shifting, it is constantly shifting, it's constantly moving, you can also find support. So that's why that one has its name. And then Celeste, or Solace, some people say, I named her that just because I feel like when you're on your period, oh my goodness, I think periods have had this trademark of just being a negative experience for women. It's just negative. And I think talking with other women my age, we have a very negative reaction to our periods. We're like, oh, that time of the month again, it's so negative. And
Yeah.
a part of my transition to creating our body, but even started before, was looking at my periods from a positive mindset and started treating my periods with love rather than attacking it. Like, it attacks me, but I shouldn't attack it. I should try to love it. And that way, because it starts having this negative mindset about it. So solace was just something that felt right with how I want women to feel and to experience when it comes to their periods, and get away from this mindset of negativity, because yes, it sucks. I think all of us women can agree it sucks, but I think we can find a way to love it. We can find a way to find peace and find happiness towards it. And I think when you start addressing the symptoms, you can. Because I think for those women out there who are luckily have no symptoms, oh, I feel good luck is women out there. They go through their periods without the negativity. They're like, oh yeah, I'm just that time of the month again. They're able to move throughout the day. Right. So I'm like, clearly that shows that the effects of symptoms. I was like, okay, if we remove the symptoms, and then you have this solace, you have this peace, and you can actually enjoy your period.
Yeah.
So that's essentially the meaning behind all of the brand name and the pack and the product names. And yeah.
Those are beautiful names. I love your creativity. Each of the names have a story behind it. Seeking solace in a warm cup of tea when you've just gone through a really bad period, or ate the whole rows of Oreo cookies in your luteal phase. Now you just want a cup of tea. Whatever that might be. These are absolutely beautiful names. It's the working of a true creative entrepreneur.
Yep.
My old PR mindset is just spinning now of different marketing ideas for you. But the first thing that came to my mind too is this woman needs to get on a stage. The ingredients, though, that goes into each of these 4 teas. Tell us about that. How did you source them and knew which ingredients would be very comforting and soothing for all the different phases that a woman could go through? Obviously, it's not a magic pill, but it's probably just those herbs are known throughout years and years and ancient traditions, herbal medicine, to bring solace and comfort. So tell us how you source them.
Sourcing was a struggle for me, in the sense where I initially had a rough draft. So I initially started with solace, with the idea of what I wanted to do, and the ingredients of what I wanted to put in her were, like, I looked at each individual symptom. I kind of went into did my research and said, okay, these are all the symptoms, all majority of the big symptoms that a woman experiences through her menstrual cycle. And I think just by word of mouth, us women share each other. Oh, try this herb, try this tea, right? So it was a piecing of, I've been using chamomile to soothe my cramps. A lot of people say raspberry leaf tea to actually help the uterus. So I was like, okay, I can compare those two. And then I did my more research on kind of figuring out, okay, what herbs can pair with the symptoms. So it really was like those crossword puzzles. Okay, I have this word. I'm trying to figure out what does it connect to that. And I fortunately enough was able to find a supplier locally who was able to finish that recipe and kind of help me build that. But supplying itself was, going back on my first statement, was difficult, just because, like, when you enter entrepreneurship and you enter a product-based business, a lot of people are like, oh, source your things abroad, source your things in this country, it's cheap. A lot of people enter with the mindset of it's cheap, so find the cheapest outcome. When it came to tea, and when it came to this product, I was like, not to say that if I were to source it abroad, that it wouldn't be a good product, but for me, I really have a high standard of quality.
Good for you.
When I was creating this, I was like, I didn't even know if it was going to be good for the market, but I was creating it for myself and the high standards I have for myself. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to consume something, it has to be good quality. I don't feel comfortable consuming them that's not high quality. So finding a high quality supplier that provides high quality herbs was a challenge. And part of that standard was traceability. I really wanted to know where these herbs were coming from, where are suppliers sourcing these from, not because it changes how I'm going to drink the tea or whatnot, but it adds that peace of mind. So for me, if I know, like, I think it's a trust. So if my supplier is able to share with me, okay, this ingredient is sourced from here, that ingredient is sourced from there, so I can get a world map vision of where, like, essentially, like, where all the teas are coming in from. It just adds a level of peace of mind. And then also just the fact that you think tea is, like, automatically natural and organic and all these things. No. I was finding in my research, it's not. And I was like, what do you? I was like, it's tea. It should be, or you're taking a flower, you're taking a plant, you're taking whatever, which is already organic, and just drying it, which is to keep organic. But and that was just something that I was finding within my journey, that some suppliers are like, yeah, that's not organic. And that made me question, wait, okay, if it's not organic, what are you doing to it to not make it organic? Because it comes out the earth organic. So what is going on in that process? That just raised a little red flag. I was like, okay. So luckily enough, I was able to find a supplier that actually literally met all of these criteria, which was hard. It took me a while. And they're like, yes, all of our ingredients are organic, ethically sourced. We can track where they come from. So if you have any questions about tracking, or let's say there's an outbreak in a certain country and you're like, hey, we heard about this. Is this ingredient okay? Like, yes, sure. And you can actually track and keep a good inventory, keep a good eye on the quality of the teas, especially when you're mixing so many different teas at the same time. You kind of want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on where they're being sourced and where they're coming from, and that area and region is okay. Going back on creating the ingredients and the teas, once I was able to find that supplier, we started, it really is a relationship where, like, this supplier, honestly, I think is a unicorn supplier, because most of the suppliers we're reading into, they just supply. You give them the blueprints and they just make the tea, they just batch it, they just create it. Where this supplier had their own built in. They're like, oh, you have a tea expert, we have a herbalist. We have some educated and knows their herbs on site. So if I were to send them a draft and they're like, Chelsea, this won't work, they can tell me it won't work. They're like, okay, for this reason or whatever. Or if I say, oh, what if we add this? And they're like, okay, this can't be added because it conflicts against this herb, and then that's going to cause an issue. So it really is something where I've done my research to create it. And then the second layer of verification to say, okay, with our expert knowledge, with our understanding, with our education regarding herbs, we're going in and giving it a final look and making sure it is actually good to consume, good to go. And then we move it, and then we pass it through batch creating and packaging it. But I love that relationship. And I think when people, like, I always go back to the beginning of people saying, oh, you should just source internationally, it's cheaper. But I wouldn't have this relationship. I wouldn't be able to go in and send them and email them, like, ideas and thoughts, and be like, okay, what about this? And for them to come back and say, okay, like, we got to shift here, got to add this. And then they're the ones who completely formulate it. So I'm like, hey, here's the idea. They're the ones, okay, like, because of this ratio and that ratio and this ratio and that ratio works well together. It still gives you the survive, this taste and what you're looking for, primarily focusing on these areas. These notes will come in. So a big thing for our teas are they taste good, because I'm someone who's, if it does not taste good, you will have a hard time convincing me to take it. I have a hard time taking buckwheat when I'm sick because it tastes bad. So I'm creating these teas.
Buckwheat is pretty bad.
It's so bad. So when I'm creating these teas, if I already have this notion of that I will quite literally refuse to take buckwheat despite how sick I am, I don't want people to not want to take our teas because they taste bad. Working with them and saying, okay, I want them to have this flavor profile. Can we add things to make them taste good? Like, they're not there to operate as a function or for the tea, but they're quite literally just to make sure that it tastes good, and you can take your medicine without wanting to throw it up like buckwheat. So it's a relationship that I truly value, and I think when people say, "Oh, you source locally," and I'm like, "Yeah, it costs more," but the relationship and the partnership that I'm getting from this local supplier is something that I think is invaluable, and it doesn't matter how cheap I can get the ingredients from elsewhere. Can I have the same type of relationship? That supplier, someone that has organic ingredients, that has herbalists and specialists on site, is someone that tracks their ingredients, is comfortable sharing what they source their ingredients with their customers. So far, I have yet to find that. But for now, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I have a great relationship. And I think I value that relationship and that quality because we're talking about something that affects the female body. So you need to have high standards of quality because I think anything less than you're playing a dangerous game and one that I don't think is worth the risk at all.
Yeah. And so after doing all that homework and sourcing, you landed on an Ontario company. Is that correct? From your website, this is what I read.
Yep.
So you're Canadian owned, Canadian sourced, and Ontario, of all places in the world. Who would have thought? Are you allowed to mention who they are or whereabouts in Ontario?
I can tell you they're in Ottawa. I don't think I went to the idea, not even that I had one as a supplier close by. But yeah, you said it better. Of all places, Ontario, of all places, Ottawa, this is insane.
This is serendipity. This is truly the universe having our back.
Yeah.
And it's the relationship piece when we come together as community, when women get together and gather and circumnavigate a system that is putting up more barriers and obstacles, we will find ways to break down those barriers because there is pillars of great health for women's hormonal health to support us through our journey, no matter where we are. And I say that's strength, movement, nutrition, what we put in our bodies, fuel our bodies with, how we rest our bodies, sleep, recovery, and how we manage stress. And a lot of us equate teas to managing stress, ashwagandhas and all of those, chamomile, for example, very soothing and comforting for the body. But the whole idea of these pillars being wrapped around with community, making it the fifth pillar, is equally vital and important. So I really value you as an entrepreneur, as a young woman, supporting other women, the relationship with your supplier, but now you have relationship with your distributors. So you are collaborating with studios and wellness companies. You are now in Toronto, Vancouver, the UK. How did this element of your business come into fruition?
Yeah, it came during our pre-launch phase. When we're wrapping up before launch, I don't know where this idea came about. I just knew I wanted to be community-based. So we worked with a lot of community women's events, sponsoring some in the UK, like in London, UK, sponsoring some in Toronto, some in Vancouver. And that was a really important thing for me to tap in to community earlier on. That's something that I still want to keep doing. I've taken a step back since launching just because now there's so much business things going on that you're like, oh my goodness. But that's something that I still hold value to the brand in the sense that the notion behind my decision to tap into community was I want the everyday woman to try our teas. I want the everyday woman to feel supported because I knew that going into this business that there are going to be women who don't like teas. There are going to be women who don't even know we exist because they're not looking for it. You have the women who are very tapped into the holistic side of things, but I want the everyday women to get a taste of our teas, to get our teas in their hands. And the best way to do that in my mind was tap into communities and tap into the yoga teas and the wellness teas and the community events, sponsoring gifts at summer pilates and lawn where women are actively taking care of their bodies. They're doing something to move their bodies, to ground their bodies, or just body focused activity. And then say, once you've done the activity, you can now go home with something that supports your body when you're going through whatever hormonal phase you're in. And I think that pillar, was also an important one to have in looking at community, at building this brand. And right now we're looking at, okay, now that we've launched, now that we are getting our exposure and growing as a brand, how do we make the best, experience, the best exposure for women? How can we tap into that community? How can we share with the community? Because once again, it is a community, right? We as women are a community in ourselves. So like, how can we tap into this community? How can we leverage this community? How can we support this community? That's something that I pretty early on that I was so excited to be able to tap into, experience that, because it gave me an understanding of the power of community before we even launched. And then now launching and kind of being a couple months in, I really want to get back into how can we support the community more and what are the needs of the community and how can we find that? How can we find our place within the needs of the community and how just go from there?
I love that. You're just a wealth of information. And again, I'm coming up with all kinds of taglines for you. A tea to taste for the everyday woman, a tea to support the everyday woman. So what's the future for OURBody? Beyond the initial line of teas, do you see you've got years ahead of you in entrepreneurship. Do you see yourself branching out into other offerings, be it products, education, partnerships?
Yeah. Right now my creative juices are flowing. So looking at expanding the tea line itself into other categories and other areas of health. I've also having a lot of women like Chelsea when it's in tea bag form. So changing the formatting. So that's something that we're working on this year to launch our tea bag formulations of the tea so it's more accessible for everybody. But aside from just tea, there are some ideas that I have going on, kind of looking into two completely different product ideas that still focus around supporting the female body, but just the delivery method is different. So we're looking at expanding the product line, listening to women. Our brand quite literally is one of the needs of the women, adjusting and moving and flowing with the needs of women. So staying fluid in that sense. And then education. So we are working on an educational course. I've been so privileged to work with naturopaths and women who understand the female body from like a holistic side. So we're partnering up with them to really talk about not just the menstrual phase, but like perimenopause and menopause phase and just providing education to women in a way that's less overstimulating. I think right now there's so much going on on social media, on the internet about this and that and this and that. And you're like, okay, but what should I be doing? I think right now there's a big wave on cycle syncing and all these things is trying to like I think just education and information that's just more digestible. So looking to launch more serious educational content. End of this year, education is going to become a main pillar in the sense where it's just like, it's going to be a tandem with our product offerings. And then looking into events. So a big goal of mine really is to be able to host a space, host an environment where women, all ages, all phases come together and we can talk. We can connect as women, we can share, we can laugh, we can cry, we can just gather as a whole in a safe space. In a safe space and just have these conversations in a large scale. So that's something that I do want to do. Figuring out the formatting, I have some ideas. Right now, it's still an idea, and we're still trying to iron out the kinks, but really getting community together in person and talking about everything. And
You
then
could call it OURBody Cafe and meet monthly online.
just like gather together. And then for way down the line, I always tell my 5 to 10 year plan. Is to have a retreat of sense where it's a place where women can relax and reset, but also gather information, also be able to have doctors, but knock on wood, if this idea goes well, have doctors on site who can provide women with all the answers to the questions they have about their bodies. So that you're coming to our retreat to relax and ask your questions, but you're leaving rejuvenated and having answers to your questions instead of sometimes waiting for the doctor or finding a doctor. And really, it's a 50-50 on if you're going to get answers. The ideal environment is the doctors and the healthcare providers we all have on site. Their sole job, regardless of how long it takes, is to get you answers. If they can't get you answers, refer you to someone who can, or provide you with a plan, or provide you with some sort of information regarding your body.
The role of a menopause doula, which is exactly what I do.
Yeah, so that's my entire
I love that.
of OURBody, and it's something that we're slowly. I'm a planner, so I'm slowly thinking of creating a plan and then looking at it, and we're understanding the business itself because we're still new. So understanding being in the business and understanding the needs of OURBody, but also understanding the needs of the woman we're aiming to support and the community we're aiming to help, and then adjusting our future plans, adjusting our future products, adjusting the education and whatnot to accommodate the needs of the community based on also the realities of the business and growing from there.
So beautiful. Amazing. Yes. This is your year. It's the fire horse year, the new Chinese New Year in February, and it's full charge ahead. You just do trusting instincts, which is another powerful tool in the woman's body, is the instincts, getting out of the headspace and going into the heart. And you are definitely nailing it, Chelsea. That is incredible. Chelsea, I could have you on again and again. And maybe as your company evolves and we see different iterations of the teas and different iterations of the business, you come back and share. We spread your message wide and far. If there's any distributors out there in the wellness industry, be it a clinic, a health food shop, a studio, and you want to get on board, reach out to this business here. Chelsea, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find us on our website at ourbody.ca and primarily on social media through Instagram at @OURBody.
We will get all those in the show description below. It's been such a pleasure having you here. I'm excited to share the story and even try some tea. So I'll have to find a distributor out here on Vancouver Island.
We're working on that. We have some things in the plans to get there.
All right. Now let me know if I can push for you, stoke the fires a little bit. Because I know of some studios out here in my local community that could be a viable option for you as well.
We're open to getting our product to as many retail distributors out there because that'll get us in as many hands of women as we possibly can.
Definitely. Thank you for joining me and sharing your energy, your expertise on the Menopause Disrupted podcast, Chelsea.
Thank you for having me.
From my conversation with Chelsea, these are my 3 big takeaways. They're universal to so many women navigating menopause, but even women younger, Chelsea's age. Number 1, take agency over your health. The medical system continues to dismiss and overlook women's health concerns, as Chelsea's story so powerfully illustrated, and it's up to us to advocate for our health needs. Ask questions, seek second opinions, and don't accept dismissal. Remember, no one will champion your body like you will, so trust your instincts and stand up for your well-being. Number 2, be the change you want to see. Change in women's health doesn't just happen inside the system. It starts with us. Chelsea's journey shows that even when the system fails, we can get creative, build new solutions, and push for better care, whether it's through entrepreneurship, education, or simply sharing your story. Every action helps move us towards a more equitable future. And number 3, women thrive in community. Women do better when we come together, share our experiences, and support each other. Community, whether it's in a circle of friends, a podcast audience, or women gathering at events, quietly and peacefully breaks down barriers and taboos. By normalizing conversations about our bodies and health, we create space for healing, learning, and collective empowerment. If today's insights resonated with you, I'd love for you to be a part of our growing community of menopause disruptors. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening right now. And if you know someone who can benefit from these conversations, please share this episode. Sometimes a simple act of sharing can be the first step in someone's healing journey. And hey, if you're ready to take the next step in your menopause journey, I'm here to support you. You can find all my services, including my comprehensive menopause intelligence digital course, one-on-one coaching programs, and workplace education services at mlcoaching.com. It's in the show notes. Want to stay connected and get regular doses of menopause wisdom? Follow me on Instagram at Menopause Disruptor Podcast, where I share tips, insights, and real conversations about navigating this transformative phase of life. Let's continue to disrupt this menopause conversation together. Remember, midlife should be the best life, and it will be. Namaste.